But anyway, I wanted you all to share this microphone down here. Because I got it all mixed up. I was outside.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Forum. I am Laura McCletty, one of the facilitators for the forum, along with Jackie Edwards Walton, Winston Robinson, who will be coming in a few, Mary Johnson, who will not be with us today. We have Natalie McGarrett, who is our timekeeper, and she will let you know when your time is up. We are only here until 10 o'clock. Sometimes we extend it. And I like to share with our guests that we never know who's going to show up, but people come in respectfully and they leave respectfully. So just don't let this frighten you, because this room may be full because of the subject that we are addressing this morning. I'd like to ask, first of all, if we have anyone here for the very first time, other than our guests, because they will introduce themselves.
We kind of skip.
I get it.
You didn't finish introduction, then we always do the prayer first.
Okay.
Before we get to
Good morning. My name is Sam Polar. I organize with Jewish Voice for Peace.
Welcome. Welcome.
I'm Crystal Tucker. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse.
Welcome, ladies, to the Tuesday Forum, and we meet almost every Tuesday throughout the year, about 42 to 47 Tuesdays, and we're meeting here the majority of the time, and we ask you to come back and visit with us at another time, and I hope that you will see the importance of us having these meetings this morning. We'd like to start off with the word of prayer, so I'm going to ask Ken if he would lead us in the word of prayer this morning. Bishop Ken.
I'm tired of coming up here, and today I got my cap. You know, nothing be in my cap. I ain't praying for y'all next week. Y'all bless the bishop. Lock the door. Let us pray. Good morning, Lord. This is another beautiful day. And somewhere, somebody's hurting in a whole lot of places. But you, Lord, we pray on behalf of those who can't do for themselves, and those who are marginalized, and taking abuses. Lord, you can straighten all this out. And we trust you to do that. But we also challenge ourselves to trust you to do it in your own time and way. And today, oh God, may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. Amen.
Okay, now, as I was corrected, just continue to introduce our team here. Steve Johnston, who does computer work along with Shay Abdul and Dr. Thomas Moore. We also have Gary Young, who is not with us, and Carlene Ivory Canton. We'd like to also share with you that we do live streaming as well as Facebook Live. So you have that audience here as well. We ask you to put your telephone on silence while you're here, and including me. Let me put mine on silence. And we have a subject that we will be discussing this morning that is critical, particularly at this time in the United States, and even in Charlotte. It is very close to all of us that are here. So immigration is something that is something that we need to talk about, and we need to understand, we need to be aware of what's going on, especially in Charlotte. So I'm gonna allow these ladies to introduce themselves. We're gonna start off with our law firm. And I'm not good with names. Many of us are not good with names, so I'm not gonna even try to to pronounce the name, so I'll let them introduce themselves. And our first speaker here will introduce herself, but she has to step out for just a second. But she's from a law firm, so we know we need and want to hear where the laws are and where they are set in our community. So without any further ado, if you can introduce yourself, and you can just pass it on down to her, and then the two of you will use that microphone down there. And just as information, we handle the question and answering session. We get the names of those that have questions once you all have all presented. And once you present and you we have the questions, we will identify those that raise their hands first, and we will give them an opportunity to ask the question. We will give you all at least 3 minutes to present, and once you present, and for those that will be asking a question, if you want to direct your question to one of the individuals up here to do so, or if you want all of them to answer the questions, you can do that as well. So without any further ado, thank you all so much for coming and sharing with us this morning at this important time in our life.
Good morning. I'm Cynthia Aziz. I'm an attorney here in Charlotte, and I've been focusing my practice on immigration and nationality law for over 35 years. So I've kind of been around for a bit in this community, and I'm very proud of this community because there's been so much outreach, and it's grown and multiplied, and these women at this panel are a fine example of it. The community of immigration in the Charlotte area is wide in terms of countries people come from and the reasons that people come. We are a microcosm of this whole country, and I'm very proud of the Charlotte community and the outreach to immigrants. I've had clients that have come from some of these outreach communities, and I'm just going to say quickly before I pass the mic on, I heard a recent homily where they said, see and say. You see something, say something. And I think that's true what we're hearing now today. You're seeing abuses, you're seeing less. Say something.
Hi, good morning. My name is Danielle Andrade, and I'm the communications lead for Carolina Migrant Network. We're a nonprofit organization here based in Charlotte, and we focus, there's two components to our organization. There's the legal and the organizing. So the legal department focuses on representing folks in removal proceedings and in detention facilities. So a lot of these families that are being separated and really torn apart, a lot of the people that are being arrested here and detained are being sent to Stewart Detention Center in Georgia, which is very, very far. It's a 6-hour drive, and it's really in the middle of nowhere. There's no organization or no attorney to provide free legal representation for them, so we're kind of like we're a unicorn. We're the only organization that does that in the Carolinas. And then our organizing component is called Comunidad Colectiva, or collective community, which focuses on being on the ground with community directly impacted. We have an ICE verifying hotline where we get reports of ICE detentions, and we send verifiers to verify what is occurring, so we can go ahead and let other community members know of what is happening and to be aware, to take caution. And we did get out to vote. We partner with college folks, so there's a lot within the organizing side as well, like know your rights and everything. Yes, thank you for having me.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Binti Teddy. I am the founder of Amani Kids. It's a non-profit organization based in Charlotte. We are dedicated to support children from Africa, refugees and immigrants. We support them by connecting them to the programs, organizations that help them succeed academically, emotionally, and socially. I founded this organization because basically on my own experiences facing language barriers, lack of communication, lack of information, and lack of resources that lead me created a nonprofit to support my community. Thank you.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Sue, she, her pronouns. I am the Community Engagement and Power Building Director at SEAC Village. We used to be the Southeast Asian Coalition, transitioned to being SEAC Village to be more encompassing of our base. We're a Southeast Asian and Black organization. We primarily work within low to no income Southeast Asian Black communities here in Charlotte and in other counties, specifically in Greensboro. Some of the buckets of work that we focus on is obviously like civic engagement and political education, citizenship. We support folks with applying for citizenship because that's #1 defense for folks that are coming here that have the opportunity to become citizens, right? And then we work within youth organizing and then movement building and building solidarity and supporting local work. Here, just a personal story. My family and I came here as refugees in 2002. I'm from the Montier community. North Carolina has the largest Montier community outside of Southeast Asia. And yeah, this past April, we celebrated, or we honored 50 years of the end of the war in Southeast Asia and what that all means for Southeast Asian folks that come here. Because most of it, because, you know, we came here because of politics, and so Southeast Asian identity has to be political in that sense, right? So yeah, happy to be here with you all and being community.
Hi everyone, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm Sandra Kitembo and I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Outreach for Kids. I'm thinking with your introductions, name, and how we got here. Outreach for Kids is a nonprofit, you've never heard of, that works in Charlotte. And we work just with immigrant children and their families. Our whole thing is that we want to be able to be supportive with whatever journey, chapter that newly arrived immigrants are at. So a little bit about my story and how I got involved is I've been an immigrant all of my life. I'm Congolese by ethnicity, but I was born and raised in Rwanda. And in Rwanda, you don't necessarily have you don't get a nationality of being Rwandese. So I've always been an immigrant. That immigrant experience, trying to figure out what my space was. We moved to the US in 2009 in Boston. And that was also another experience of trying to navigate. So kind of how I find myself at Outreach is trying to be the person that bridges that gap of being a newcomer in a space where you don't know how to, how do I get to the bus, transportation, how do I get involved in school, how do I read a report card, what does food look like, what does a job look like? So really Outreach is that space. We want to make sure that we're there from the education system, from the social emotional well-being, family support, emergency funding, what that looks like. But also we really care about celebration, and so we do a lot of festivals so that people can connect with one another. But that's a little bit about Outreach and myself. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Now, since we have 5 panelists this morning, and you all have just been short in doing your presentations, we're going to start taking questions from our audience. And as I like to reiterate the fact that if you want to ask one of them a question, or you want all of them to answer the question, indicate that in your questioning. And we want to make sure that we just keep it flowing that way, and that way we can get to everyone, because we don't like not being able to give you an opportunity to ask the questions for our audience. So, yes.
May I add something, Ms. Lord? If you elect to have everyone answer your question, please, panelists, keep it under a minute. You can either, at least in the early portions of it, before we get in time crunch, if you would like each panelist to answer your question, they will have a minute to do so.
Thank you. So we're going to start with our first question, which will come from Mr. Coates.
This is to each of you, and I'd like to know to what extent do any of you have, in terms of a cooperative or non-cooperative relationship with the Sheriff's Department. as it may relate to ICE and illegal deportation.
So, I can answer that, and just to clarify, is it our relationship with the sheriff's department, or is it the relationship the sheriff has with the community that you wanna know?
With the sheriff's department, they're the ones that actually house the deportee.
Yeah, I think she wants, in terms of our organization working, or in terms of just the community?
Yeah.
I guess the clarification is whether in terms of our specific organizations working with, or just in terms of community, what we've been seeing.
How you and your organization.
Okay. Yes,
are
yes,
working
absolutely.
with them.
Yes.
So we don't work with the sheriff's department, period. The sheriff's department has a whole thing. So right now, what we are seeing, our community being under attack is that a law was passed a year ago called HB 10, which, when a person was detained, they were sent to jail. The sheriff sent them to jail. There had to be a detainer's request sent to ICE, meaning that they had to notify ICE that there was a person in the jail, right? So they, I know that the sheriff in Mecklenburg County has not opposed it, but it goes beyond his jurisdiction. I know right now there's another law that is threatening our community. It's HB 318, I believe. And it is currently, it's gonna be voted on in the Senate. And that one would force the sheriff to collaborate with ICE, which is something that a lot of sheriffs in North Carolina have said that they didn't want to do. Like, they wanted to support communities, and they see that standpoint that with working with communities, it doesn't make us any safer. If anything, it harms our community to pass these laws to force people to go into these things. So that's kind of like where law is right now, or the laws I was talking about, HB 318. And I know Ms. can talk more about it.
Yeah, and the question is, does your organization have anything?
No.
Thank you for the question. My organization don't work with sheriff office, but we would like to collaborate with them because during this time it's very hard for our immigrant community. Especially my community, most of them, they don't speak English, they speak our dialect. If they're facing through this kind of situation with the police, ICE, or any sheriff officer, they cannot express themselves, they cannot defend by themselves. I would like to collaborate with the sheriff office. That will be good for us to have our community to face this situation.
Jack. Did you, Danny, are you gonna answer? Oh,
I was able to stay with Daniela. We work, actually, a little bit of our related, we work in the same office called the Charlotte Home Center. So I think a lot of our sort of thoughts and beliefs is kind of the same, it's just good to know. And yeah, we don't maybe see it's changing a little bit, but right now it's just a no, yeah.
I can also share, at SEAC, we don't work with the sheriff department. You know, I think that the sheriff department policing, they have, we don't have the most trusting relationship, and that is why they have to do, like, their job is tied to lots of the laws and what we vote into our General Assembly. Like in the past with 287G and ending 287G, that was, you know, a moment where Sheriff McFadden ended that agreement. But now we're in a time where HB 10 requires all of sheriff in the state of North Carolina to collaborate with ICE. And so when we are centering our communities and like what they are impacted by, these are real humans that are going through real struggles. I think that it will collaborate when it makes sense, but for the most part, we have not.
Okay. Sorry. Did you get the question?
I believe I understood that you're trying to find out which organizations are working with the sheriff's department, is that correct?
Yes.
So it's more of a statewide effort. Like there's a Justice Center in Raleigh that has a unit that's able to work with the sheriff's departments.
How's the mic up?
Just a little closer.
I'm sorry. So, as you were explaining soon, that it's legislative is what the problem is. And it's gonna take a tidal wave to change that. Until we can change politically in the state, I don't see how we're gonna change this. We got a sheriff on our side, but he's lucky he still has his job right now. So, if there's a way to support him, I would say support him, but he alone cannot do this. And as you know, one of the things about the programs that we've had where we have collaboration with the police and the sheriff's department, it helps all our communities. It allows people not to feel safe giving witness to a crime. But when the immigrant community doesn't feel safe, they're not going to witness a crime and report a crime. And it's a huge problem. And it's a danger to all of us to have a program that is so negative on the presence of immigrants in our communities.
First of all, I'd like to thank some folk for helping with this particular program. Stephanie with Carolina Migrant Network, Jessica Foster with United Way, Tina Marshall, Cole Lee, Gerald Patton. It took a village indeed to bring this diverse panel together, and I'm just so happy that you are here. And do know that me personally, I care about my neighbors. I'm happy to be here, to have you here, and if there's anything that my little village can do to help, I'm willing to help. My question has to do with temporary protection status and the change from the Biden administration to where we are now. Whoever wants to answer it, all of you don't have to answer it, maybe 2 or 3 of you.
I'll start and get your reflections as well. So, temporary protected status is something that's decided upon between, it's not a law, it's a policy, and our State Department works with the government where the people are coming from to see if it's the appropriate thing to do. And it's often done in situations where there have been natural disasters, hurricanes, and people are in our country, and if we were to send them back, it would cause a great hardship to the country that is structurally deficient at that point from the hurricane or whatever natural disaster. It's not political asylum. It is not a permanent status. And it's been used for decades. Ever since I've been practicing law, there's been a temporary protected status for one country or another. The number of countries has expanded because of sadnesses throughout the world, whether there's civil war or what it might be. And sometimes it's our involvement in those countries that resulted in the need for people to be able to stay safe here. The list now is quite long, but unfortunately it's being truncated because of policies right now that are cutting the end to this program. And for instance, the Salvadorans have had TPS probably the longest, and there's been efforts to try to find a way to legalize their status, and that failed. And the most recent thing was a class action that we were able to help a lot of people called Kerosene, but I won't get into the details of that. And then we had the more recent countries like Afghanistan. After we evacuated our troops from Afghanistan, we had military people that were assisted by special immigrant visa people that came here, but children were left behind that were over 21. Some of them got here, some of them were here, and rather than send them back with the Taliban there, TPS was allowed for that country nationals. And that's a group right now that's in danger of being sent back. And then we have Haiti, and we know many of us have family and friends from Haiti, and their return to Haiti sees death at their door. Lebanon just got it. Palestinians have just recently received some version of this. Their African countries are in large number have been protected over the years, and eventually he wants to get rid of all of it. And with no solution, no path for them to leave, just arrest and detain. So this is a great concern to many in our community that have been able to be saved because of the goodness of our country and diplomacy that was happening. That's going to come to a quick end.
So when it comes to policy, I am going to be giving it to Daniela. So that we work mostly with, after school program, family support, and community engagement. This is the beauty of collective impact. So there's other organizations that are doing it. So if I'm passing it because I want to have somebody who's actually, knowledgeable to be able to share more of those thoughts. So yeah, now know that there's people on this table that have a little bit more of those thoughts.
I have a question. So I'm curious to know, since we have such a unique.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Just one last thing. So you know what the benefit of TPS is? They allow work authorization, and it's not free. It's not a permanent solution, it never has been, but it allows them to be here safe with a work permit and driver's licenses and pay taxes. And it's renewed every 2 years, and it costs money every 2 years, so it's not a free program.
And TPS stands for?
Temporary Protected Status. And it truly is temporary.
So my question again, wanting to know if you feel, since we have such a diverse panel, do you feel like the sentiment of the threat is the same throughout your unique experiences here? Like, do you feel there are tactics that are designed for specific communities and creating that feeling of chaos and, again, threat?
Just to clarify, you saying, do you think it's more directed at certain groups than others?
No, do you feel, is the threat for the Haitian community the same as the Palestinian community or the Latinx community?
I can answer that because we work with a very diverse group of immigrants, newcomers. So we have about 50% of our population is from Latin America that speak from different countries. You have Honduras, you have Salvadorians, but then the other parts of Southeast Asia, African, there's a lot of African communities. So really throughout the entire community, yes, I can definitely say that. And no matter what your status is, I've been a citizen for a long time, and honestly, I don't know. Like, there's just the chaos and the fear that's around. I think every immigrant feels that you feel it for yourself, you feel it for your family, you feel it for your community, you feel it for your neighbor. And I think we saw that at the beginning of Jan, where with the new administration, there were just so many different ideas. There were so many things that were coming that were creating confusion. And some of them are not actual, fact-based, but they're just things to place out systematically to put fear so people are not outside, people are not enjoying the communities. So I'll say throughout, definitely, no matter where you're coming from, just as a newcomer, immigrant, whatever journey you might be at with your status, there's definitely the fear, the confusion, you care for yourself, your family, you care for your community. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that in general, we're seeing an attack on Black and brown folks all across, right? And when it comes to immigration, I mean, we're seeing it now, not only with this Trump 2.0, but in the first presidency as well. But the tactics, at least that we're seeing, that ICE are using, I think, are very aggressive. Like it's become normal to go above and beyond and harm people, and it's become almost even acceptable, right, to harm people the way that they're doing, which is not okay in any way. So we are seeing so many different attacks now on our community that we had never seen before. And not only is it harming community members, it's harming children, the children development, schools. It's now impacting everyone around. It's no longer a single community that's being impacted. Everyone is being touched by everything that's occurring. And it really is our moment to stand up and really not take it for anyone.
Yes, if I can say something, especially for African community, we all have these feelings. Most of our community come from the war part, where people are killings, families are killings, feelings come here. We came not here to seek for peace, to seek for freedoms, but where we start feelings, we live like, we come like in a secure place for us. That brings a lot of trauma, a lot of emotional. That things is not really good for our children to succeed in school, to also have a well-being and environment when they are living. We just want to create a community where everyone feels secure, heard, understand, right? Stuff that I can say.
I think that a lot of people come to the U.S. for opportunities. People don't come here because, people come here because there are opportunities, whether it's work or whether they were forced to come. And I want to be very clear about the difference between what's an immigrant and what's a refugee, and to understand those nuances. There are folks that come here for college to gain better access to jobs and opportunities. And I think there's a class dynamic that we need to think about it too. I also think that as somebody that came here as a refugee from the war in Vietnam or the war in Southeast Asia, I think that comes with a lot of violence. It comes with a lot of trauma, and I think that that's something to think about too. That we're sending people back, Southeast Asian folks, back to a country that the U.S. intervened in. The U.S. led to the rise in the Khmer Rouge. The U.S. heavily bombed Laos too. So I think thinking about those things is important.
I just wanted to add, I love how you brought up the differentiation between immigrants and refugees, which I think is a really huge deal. But most refugees, which is all refugees, are coming because they are fleeing the country for a reason. And so when you're coming to seek a safe space here, and then you're then feeling threat here, and where do you end up at? And so I think that's something all of us should be concerned about. And yeah, so it's been the biggest sadness to see that even just refugees, that's a threat just because of one, an administration that has different ideologies about it and what it looks like. So I don't think they even have an understanding what it means to be a refugee and why people flee their countries.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janette Coppin. I'm a first-generation Liberian American, so I know firsthand about immigration, refugees, all of that growing up in an African household in a community. So my question is more so from community engagement standpoint. And this is for all of you, right? But again, I'm representing the African community. One thing that I do is I'm a connector and I'm a bridge. And so whether it's entertainment, whether it's business, immigrant, whatever it is, I'm connecting to my community. My community is not gonna come to forums like this to get information, but it's still good, right? Because the greater community needs it. But how are you guys intentionally engaging your community versus expecting or hoping for them to come to you? And I say that because some are very scared. So even if you have something, they won't come. But like for me, I just interviewed an immigration attorney, Ursula B. Brumskin-Bonar. She's dedicated her whole career, her law firm, to immigration for over 25 years. And so we spoke about TPS, DED, green card, visa, all of those things. We also spoke about what's lawful, what's not, and just various things to push out. Peter Boca with Zanzibar Cafe also hosted a forum. And so just different things like that. And Zanzibar is a Liberian restaurant. So how are you guys intentionally going within your communities and also hosting events for them for education?
I love this question because my whole thing is community engagement. So, and I'll say that's the biggest outreach. That's our third department, just community engagement. Because we care about we're specifically place-based service. So we go where the people are. We don't want to have people come to where we are at. So that means in our every single part of the department. So with us after school programming, we base it off of where the people are. So right now we're currently in Albemarle Central and South Boulevard because that's where the majority we've seen with the Charlotte immigrants are. So we base ourselves on where people are going to see us. People can walk to us, so we can walk to them. So that's with our after-school programming. Family support is the same way, and then community engagement. That's where really we say we want to make sure that that diversity of culture is celebrated, is seen. So we do a lot of festivals. That's a big way because immigrants, we love to eat, we love to talk, we love to connect with one another. So intentionally throughout our programming, we do different festivals that is involved around the celebration of diverse cultures. And again, it's like inviting everyone and also us going. And outside of just the festivals, we also do quarterly pop-up resource fairs. So we go to different type of neighborhoods and we place ourselves there with different partner organizations that are catered to immigrants. So again, it's not them coming to us, it's us going to them. So if you hear music, a dance outside of your apartment, that part of townhome, it's us. We want to make sure that people that might not know where a physical building is, they'll know that we'll come to them too. So if you want to talk to me engagement and reaching out to the community, please let me know because we would love to be able to be a part or invite. Yeah.
I love this question because I am in comms and I do like marketing for the org, and when it comes to the digital aspect of organizing, right? Like how do we get people to see what we're posting for them to actually come? Like where does that impact take place? And I could go on hours about this and we can definitely talk about it more. But for me personally is one, I think that the biggest impact that I've had as like a creative is that our people deserve good things too when it comes to design, right? To a flyer, like whatever. And it might seem like the most minimal thing, but our people deserve good stuff. Right. And so, hey, we're putting something out that is visually appealing, that like will grasp the attention of our folks. And we know what that is. You know, I'm Mexican. I love when there's like colorful and it's like, you know, Day of the Dead kind of thing. That grabs my attention. Okay, so now how are we getting people? We're trying to make everything as accessible and with language access. We're also trying to make it, you know, language justice access for everybody. So that's also so important that everything that we're doing, we're making sure that we're translating it. We're translating it for folks to know, hey, this is for you. This is a celebration for you. And with the fear of everything that's occurring right now, one thing that we've noticed is when we're holding Know Your Rights workshops around the city, yes, Know Your Right workshops are great, and people do come out in numbers because they want the information, and that's, you know, when they want it, they will go. But with the fear of everything, we've noticed that the digital world is our friend right now. We're broadcasting everything, right? Facebook, that thing goes viral. And we're making sure we're like, hey, share it with someone. And that creates a chain for more outreach in the digital way.
Yes, I can respond to this question because this girl for us, Amani Kids exists because of connections. Our mission is to connect. My community is always a lack of information and connection. That's why we exist. We do our best to make them, engage them to everything they need as a community. We have we are most of African language dialects that help we connect them. If we have any information in English, we have people who come from Senegal who speak Wolof. They can translate for them in Wolof to understand. We have French speaker, we have Lingala. Most of them are actually in Charlotte, we have a lot of refugee families. They come from east part of Congo. They speak Swahili. And then we need more people who speak Swahili. We have those people who speak Swahili. We host a lot of events where we celebrate our culture. We have our days, like one of my programs name is Bisakana Day. Bisakana Days means play and have fun. It's a kind of way for us to help our community feel like how their social emotional learning and then feel healthy, for the mental health support, because I know as a teacher, play is very important for people, even kids. That's why we create this program, Bisakana Days. First of all, it's in our languages, it's in Lingala, which means play and have fun. We invite everybody, families, to come and have fun. We don't have time to do all those stuff because most of our people, they work 2 or 3 jobs because we are low income, we need money to survive. We survive not only for us here, we also provide some money for our families back home. That's why I do my best to create more programs that help them mental health, that help them.
All right, before we go to Ms. Darnell's, anybody, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna share that, like, similar to a lot of these other organizations, SEAC is off of Freedom, so we're on Bradford Drive, we're right by Thomasboro, which, if you don't know the population, it's a third Black, a third Latinx, and a third Southeast Asian, and like we prioritize being in the community. And building relationships with trusted messengers. Like I am always at the churches or the temple. I grew up in the church, and so that's where I share resources and build connections with folks, and also just talk about these issues and get rid of the shame that comes with like being impacted by immigration, right? And so those are such important avenues to connect with community members. I remember us sharing about your Know Your Rights event that we did, and we would go to like ethnic restaurants where we knew community gather, or grocery stores, and share out flyers and things in language. And if we have resources, we share them out with community members. And just right now, like I just connected with her and their organization. And so I think it's about these spaces and places that we're cultivating and being intentional about.
I was just going to say, everything is old is new again.
Turn the mic on. Turn the mic on.
Oh.
Slide it. Yeah.
You're right.
Everything old is new again. Unfortunately, we've had this type of experience in the past. As I mentioned earlier, I started over 35 years ago practicing immigration law, and the attorneys would go out to communities, and we weren't internet-based or any of that, but we would go, whether it was a gathering where people had been playing soccer and the adults were there and wanted an educational program afterwards. Sometimes that's a safer place. Sometimes it's not these days. We don't know where ICE is going to be. So it's a mixture of things, as you're hearing. So it may be a draw for the children, but you bring the parents there for an educational program. One time I spoke with Girl Scouts and their parents at a Latin Girl Scout troop. So it's going to vary depending on the community. The American Immigration Lawyers Association in Charlotte is part of a national organization, and we've been a resource to local communities as well. So the Know Your Rights programs have been tremendous in different languages. Sometimes it's safer to do it by WebEx or whatever community source you use, but other times it's better to do the one-on-one in a small faith-based community. I think all of us are accessible. This group certainly is, and there's even more. The International House, the Latin American Coalition, we could go on. The room would have been filled. We couldn't get everybody here, but we have a large group of international organizations that are seeking to get the word out. And if you want to volunteer, you're well needed. Mm-hmm.
Also, where can we get plates? You don't have to answer that now, but we have these festival celebrations. Yes, please
June
let us know.
21st, June 21st, World Refugee Day. June 21st, World Refugee Day.
Where?
Outreach for Kids. So our location is 3925 Willard Prairie Drive. But at Outreach for Kids, you can just, look it up.
Food will be there.
Food will always be there, and it's always free.
What? All right, we got Ms. Darnell.
Good morning. I have a number of questions, but I'm only allowed to ask one. I recently met with the president, a group of us met with the president of Johnson C. Smith Owena, and she was sharing with us the status of the international students, and she said that they have about 40 students who will not be going home, only because of the risk of not being able to return. Are you tapped into the universities at Johnson C. Smith? Because what's going to happen is they will have to now accommodate and make sure that those students have what they need over the summer months. So it was good to hear that Smith is going to be that place where they can stay, but it certainly was disappointing to hear that they cannot return home to be with their families during summer break. So I see you nodding, so there must be a connection with the president at Johnson C. Smith. Is there?
I'll say not specific with Johnson C. Smith, but I do know what is going on with international students just throughout and the fear of going home. Again, people with different immigration status right now, depending whether, like, rights police or international students should have the right to go home and come back. But there is a fear that if I do go back, something is going to change and now I won't be able to continue my education, and you don't want to take that risk. And so then now you're gonna have to figure out what summer looks like. I am in conversation with just friends in general. I was at Davidson College a couple of days ago, and the majority of there was a student that was graduating, the international student, and she's going back and she's taking that risk. But a majority of them are staying over the summer to Davidson just to kind of seeking out jobs or different ways that they're gonna be able to provide for themselves or. So there's definitely ways for our which we're trying to figure out. So for us, it might be an internship that they can come in some capacity for opportunities. But I'm definitely getting more aware of what is happening, and we're trying to figure out ways to be able to support, or even just in some way of engagement, so they don't feel alone or yeah.
I think that for us, it's more about resources. When they're calling us, it's if they need resources, we have a good network of folks that we can refer them to. Although specifically, we don't work directly with international students. We do have a presence in the universities around Charlotte and North Carolina with the Latine or Latinx student union. So we are aware of everything that's happening. But if anything, they are always welcome to call us, and we can always connect them with any of our networks for them to get any help needed.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I'm curious, when asked about your involvement with the Sheriff's Department, that with the exception of Mrs. Aziz, all of you sort of had a negative feeling on working with the Sheriff's Department. I think someone even said you don't really trust them. And for those of us that saw him even come in as a sheriff, he has been fighting ICE, and as you mentioned, almost to the peril of his job. So I'm curious as to why it seems to be a distrust between you and the Sheriff's Department, and why you're really not coming together and trying to support what he has been doing.
So I can talk a little bit about it. So the sheriff collaborated. There's years and years and years of no trust with the Sheriff's Department and the police in our communities, and I don't think that changes overnight, right? I think that we have to see some form of commitment from the sheriff to say, hey, he's gonna be working with communities. When he ended 287G, Stephanie Arteaga, which is a co-founder of Carolina Migrant Network, she was one of the organizers that was, helping that. And so, I mean, we are very much aware of, Gary McFadden, very nice person, but I think that the trust that the community has does not end just because of one policy. When there is other policies attacking our community, and there is no clear standpoint from the Sheriff's Department of how they're going to protect the community, how they're going to oppose it, like how verbally they're going to say, not because of me, but for the well-being of the community, we're going to do this. So I think that, I don't know, I think that actions speak louder than words. And so, yeah.
Anyone else want to ask?
I'll answer. I think that, when you understand the history of incarceration and criminalization and who the sheriff is beholden to and what laws and legislative they are beholden to, I think that is where we come in. We know the systems that are in place. We know what our role is, and our role is to center impacted communities and not necessarily, and we'll build those relationships when it makes sense. But the sheriff can say a lot of things, but the sheriff also can't do a lot of things because there are legislative things that our General Assembly pushes where now he has to collaborate with ICE, right? And so those things are interworking, and our centerpiece is our community and what they are impacted by. And I am not gonna be I'm not gonna dismiss or deny that, you know, as Southeast Asian folks, we came here in the 80s and 90s where we had war on drugs, and that is what is holding a lot of Southeast Asian folks that are impacted and being sent back to countries that they've never gone through. And so there's a larger system at play, and that we need to understand that. And that's why we are very hesitant of the relationships that we're building with the sheriff, because we know what he is held up to and what we are held up to, if that at all makes sense.
It kind of reminds me of a presentation we had at our church, St. Peter's, with Spencer Merriweather, our DA, that unfortunately we all have to stay in our lanes. And so that's what the community panel was saying. As much as we want to collaborate, there's only so much you can do to collaborate without violating the trust of your community. So one of the founders of Carolina Migrant Ministry, Migrant Network, worked very hard with the sheriff to combat HB2, and we thought we were making a movement statewide, but unfortunately with the political environment in our state, it wasn't possible. There were only a handful of sheriffs around the state that took his position. So we're not saying we're enemies of the sheriff, I don't think, at all. But it's not something you can readily sit at the table and think you're gonna change things by chatting with the sheriff.
All right, good morning. I want to piggyback a little bit off of what Ms. Napoli was saying and then kind of counter what you were stating. You said historically, you know, your relationship with law enforcement, the sheriff's office has been at an opposite relationship. And I would say, you know, very true. Historically, as a black man and that's American, our historical relationship and context with law enforcement or government is not one of a positive or a trusting nature. But when you have that opportunity, I think what she said was you have a sheriff that has been fighting ICE. You may not historically have had another sheriff that's been in that position where they're fighting at your behest, or they don't agree with the agenda of what's going on. And like you say, they are beholden to folks. But when you have that opportunity to have that ear and bend that ear, you have to take advantage of that. I mean, you may not want to say it, but it's politics as usual. You have to bend the ear. So these folks who are in the seats and have the power to have a voice, they can understand where you're coming from. You know, historically, we haven't always had a black president, but the moment we did, we had to bend that ear to the point where we could. Charlotte hasn't historically had a black city council, but the moment we do, we have to bend their ear to fight for what we need. Now, whether they do what they need to or not once they're on that dais is a whole different story. And then once that's the case, we hold them accountable. Same thing for the sheriff. You bend their ears so they understand what your plight is, and if they're not doing what they need to do, you hold them accountable and then put that story out.
I've got a question. What's the question?
I guess use a point of privilege where it's not so much a question. I guess my question is, I understand your history of distrust, but you have to start building trust somehow. And then if this man is gone and you get another sheriff that comes in.
Disagrees with you. I think the concern is what is the consequence to the community once you do this? And it's pretty dire. We talked about TPS, and this kind of has a connection to it. They were lured into programs and coming to the United States by the humanitarian efforts of prior administrations. We were lured into feeling we were in a good way with law enforcement. But now they have all the information on these immigrants. And it doesn't take much to turn it over because they're now required to turn it over more readily than before. So it is very close to what you're describing as the history of the black community. But right now, it's a little scarier because these people will be put in custody and sent to countries where they've never been before. And it's not a joke. Trump is working on relations with Libya to set up prisons there. These people could disappear from the Southeast Asian community and end up in Libya because Vietnam won't take them back. So we're working with things that are bigger than imaginable. The Southeastern community that those who were sadly involved in drugs because they had issues of traumatic stress or whatever they had in their community that resulted in young people getting involved with drugs. They were here on rehab programs doing better, but because of that old drug offense, it's now coming back to haunt them. Mm-hmm. Their histories are coming back to haunt them that they did as children. I
I was talking to a colleague in Boston, and this woman from, it's not Liberia, but I'll have to think of it in a moment. 1997, she had a theft offense, a larceny offense. She's a green card holder. She made a trip since then back into the United States, and now she's in custody and she can't get out. Old convictions are being pulled out. So lawful residents are free to travel because they had an old offense. This would have been dealt with in a humanitarian way in the past. They would not be held in mandatory detention. So I'm not minimizing what you're saying. We do need to find ways to get at the table. But the consequences are extremely severe right now. And as you were asking, is it affecting one community or another? All communities, regardless of their color. But yes, of course, there's prejudice. So it seems like it's hitting the Black community and the Hispanic community, but it's hitting the Palestinian community, people that look like me, people that look like anybody.
I think it's not personal with him, right? It's the institution, right? And so we have to understand that the minute that you say sheriff in our community, it's fear. Because now they're forced to work with ICE. There's nothing he can do. He is forced to work with ICE. So how do you build trust in the community when that community is going to be threatened the minute they make a certain interaction with them? So it's not with him personally, but it's the institution, and it's bigger than us. And the way that Mrs. Aziz was saying, it's just the fact that they have every information of our folks already. They have all of our information. Truly, they have all of our information. They can turn it around easily. And there are people in there that, they'll say they're for comedians, whatever, right? But at the end of the day is the fear of just that initial contact, because now they are forced to work with ICE. And ICE means they're going to be separated from their families and their communities.
If I can say something about that, we want to build that trust with them. That's why we are all asking for collaborations. We need to collaborate with them to help us. I just hear like a couple of days ago about one of the sheriff officer was talking about that the North Carolina laws protect immigrants. They cannot be taken by ISIS without the court document. If I give an example, if one of my brothers or sisters would have to be attacked from ISIS, and then they don't have any document, if we have collaboration with sheriff officer, we can call them and then let them know our brothers was attacked from ISIS without any document from the court. That's why all immigrant community, for me, I think we are asking for collaboration with the office, sheriff officer department.
It's a beautiful thing to see you guys doing what you do. My question is, where are the men in your organization? Because I don't see them. And of course, we all know.
Where are they? Where are they?
Yeah. What relationship?
Did you notice the Supreme Court women are the ones that made the best choices most recently on immigration? So yes, women have power, right?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna have to leave, unfortunately. I have an interview and the judge has not called me yet either, so I've been in and out with this thing in my head. I'm gonna leave it to these women to take over, but please know that what your questions are so important, because this bothers me, that we don't have the same kind of trust. Many of us know victims of crime that are immigrants, and we need to work with law enforcement. But it's a very frightening time to work with law enforcement. That's not to say we don't have friends there, because I think the sheriff is still our friend. But we have to be very, very careful.
I asked, where are the men in your organization?
I have one in my office, young man from Mexico.
How many are in your organization?
We have, they're just not here, but yeah, we got them.
Oh, before I go, there's so much in my head I want to share. You know, we're saying about what populations are affected. Do you ever hear this issue right now, birthright citizenship?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's huge. That's huge. Those with children that got their citizenship by birth, because one parent was a citizen, are at great risk. The young man in my office from Mexico, his family, he was born here, but both his parents were not citizen, only one was. And the young lady, whose family is from Mexico, the same way. So it affects so many of us. This is not just one generation's problem. This is many of our problems.
Let's give her a hand before she moves.
Thank you for doing this forum. I love to see
Come again.
Yeah. She's been before.
My name is Mike Lilly. You know, it sounds to me like immigration is not the issue. Deportation is the issue. And we're talking all around you're here, you want to stay. The issue is staying here. We keep talking about immigrants coming in, but what's being done to make sure that they stay? What are y'all working with? I mean, I was watching Rachel Maddow a little bit last night, and she was talking about this thing about the Venezuelans, 300 and some thousand maybe deported. So, you know, they're here, they ain't got to worry about coming in, they're already here. What, are y'all working with any law folks? I mean, we've got a man in charge, and he controls the three major branches: Senate, Congress, and the Supreme Court. And they're sending us away. How can we stop them?
So every organization, in at least from the ones that I've connected with that work with immigration, all have different avenues of what they can help folks with, right? Whether it's, you know, temporary protection status, or whether it's DACA renewals, whether it's citizenship. So every single one of them has a different avenue of what some folks might qualify for. For us personally, as a Caroline Migrant Network, we really try to bridge that gap, because there has been folks that have been here for decades, right? Decades, hardworking people, pay their taxes, everything. But where do they fit into some type of citizenship or pathway? And unfortunately, there is none. There is none. So our community members, people that we've grown up with, we're, you know, faced with the reality that from one day to another, we could be sent back to a country that we haven't seen in 30 years, right? Unfortunately, for those folks, it's so much harder to find some sort of pathway. And what we really try to do, if anything, is provide support and resources. And we have attorneys that do intakes for them and see what they might qualify for. But unfortunately, the cold reality is that our immigration system is completely broken. And even now, it's gonna shatter. It's crazy. That the point is, a lot of our folks, a lot of our community members do not qualify for any kind of thing. So they face deportation without any stopping. So it's a broader issue, and it's something that, you know, we need to stand up against.
Sorry, I think I just need more clarity on your question. Are you asking for those facing deportation, or for just immigrants in general? Yeah.
I mean, I'm 78 years old, born here. I'm black. I can be deported.
We got a system. We got a system.
I asked a straight clarification on the question,
I'm sorry, Sandra, we got a system.
Oh, okay.
We can't go back and forth.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
So we got a question from Howard.
Okay, sweet. All right. Yeah.
Stop. Order. Okay. So.
All right, good to know. Sorry. Good to know. Okay.
Sandra was late, so it was all right.
Okay, next question, and we'll just, that can be a discussion after this.
We'll come back.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, panelists. I know less than 1% about ICE, what's ICE, And what's better than ice? What's better than ice? I don't know what ice is. What's better than ice?
What? Makes no sense. Okay, hold on.
What does ICE stand for and the purpose of ICE?
Immigration Customs Enforcement.
What's better than ice? What's better than ice in your mind?
No ice.
Yeah, no ice. That's right. That's right.
Hold it, please. Let's get orderly. We usually are in order. We don't debate, number one. And be clear about your question and direct it to everyone or one person. Be clear with your question. And if you're not clear about what the question is, clarify the question before you answer it. So for our audience, let's do this. We know most of you have been here on a continuous basis and you know how we operate, but we don't debate, we don't go back and forth. We don't do that. So your question, once again, sir, and you all understand what he's asking. So please answer that to the best of your ability. And if you can and don't feel comfortable with doing it, just pass it on. Okay? So the question has been asked now, and what I understand he asked what is better than ice. If it's nothing, say nothing. Okay? If it's something that you think that's better than ice, answer that question. Okay. Thank you.
So are we allow him to clarify this time to set precedent?
Yes.
Yes. I asked each of you, or two of you, or who of you has something better than ice, and what in your mind is better than ice in your mind for your children, for your ancestors? What in your mind is better than ice? Erase ice and give me a plan better than ice. That's all I'm asking. And I don't know what ICE is.
So ICE is Immigration Customs Enforcement, so think of it as the policing of immigration. And if we can use our imagination, there was a world where we didn't have ICE, right? ICE was formed after 9/11, and it's, and so if we can use our imagination to what is a world without ICE, we had it, and I think that we live in a world where we are globalized and everyone's interconnected. I strongly believe, in my personal belief, that ICE shouldn't exist because what ICE has done has caused so much harm and trauma in communities. I don't know, as a collective of all of us living in the U.S., what we can imagine, but I would advocate for all of us to think about it together because there is a better world that we can build.
It's a human right to migrate. That's all. It's a human right to migrate. So that's what's better than ICE. That you have the right to be able to migrate and be able to create better opportunities for yourself, for your families, regardless of whether you're fleeing as refugees or an immigrant. Yeah.
Thank you, Lloyd, so much. That's what I was asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I have a very quick two-part question for each of you. Can you give us a call of action for people like me and Miss Jackie who are ready to go? Call of action for ourselves and call to action for our community institutions, whether that's our churches, workplaces, wherever we're connected to that has the most power. Two-part question for each of you, please.
My name is Turmoil. I actually know Cole because you do volunteer with our bridge in some ways, and I'll say the biggest things right now is most nonprofit, we're running very short of staff, so we're trying to do a lot of work with very little people. So if there's any capacity, any time, any ways that you can volunteer your hours, that's a big help and big support. So then we can place maybe our thoughts and mind into something else, right? Like many hands make light work. So figure out, and you already have the names of these nonprofits here, organizations, but there's other organizations that are also doing amazing work and focusing on different things. So plug in into an organization, they're already doing the work, they already have a system, plug in, put in your hours, 2 hours a week, 1 hour a week, administrative tasks, is it being with the kids, whatever it looks like. Just volunteer time is always needed. So I think that was the first part of the question. I don't remember the second part, but I'll let the rest go.
So I would say at the Carolina Migrant Network, you could look us up as carolinamigrantnetwork.org. We have different forms of volunteering, but one that right now is really important is that this last week we saw multiple ICE raids, Immigration Customs Enforcement raids around Charlotte, which detained and separated in broad daylight and abducted community members, period. Some of them were in front of schools, where children saw, families were impacted. And my biggest concern is what has CMS done about it? And they have spoken in some ways, but there is going to be an upcoming board meeting at the Government Center this Tuesday, May 27th, and Tuesday, June 5th. And I would just really want you guys to come and show support for the families and to demand, our board members to do something. Like, school should not be a place where ICE should be involved in. School should be designated for kids to go and learn, to have fun, to make friends, and that's it. So protecting our children is so important. That's my biggest ask for y'all today. And then just to go look us up at carolinamigrantnetwork.org.
Thank you, Marco. Marco for Action is Amaniki is a we are a new nonprofit organization. We are just started. We need your support. We are in need of volunteers, guidance, counseling. We try to learn as an immigrant myself. I don't know much about the system, about the resources, everything, how things going in America. We need your support, your counseling, your help. Can please volunteer with us, help us grow to help our community. Thank you.
I think that for us, as like all of us here, we don't live single issue lives, right? We're full beings that are impacted by different things. And I think that it's really important for us to really just check in on our neighbors and our communities and, making sure that folks that in our neighborhood, no matter their status, no matter their citizenship, that everybody has rights, and to share that with folks. I love the work that Carolina Migrant Network does, and if folks do have capacity to be a verifier, would be a thing that I would plug in, right? If you're an attorney, or if you can fill out paperwork, like we help folks apply for citizenship. And so that's a place for folks to really plug in. But just my thing would be just to check in on your neighbors. If they need help because they need help with dropping off their kids because they don't feel safe, I think that's where folks plug in, right? And so go to your neighborhood and check in on your neighbors, and yeah.
Robert. Good morning. My name is Robert Collins. I believe my question is going to be more to you, Venti and Sandra. Daniela, I do want to ask this or state this at the same time. We had a CMS here not too long ago, and they were telling us that ICE does not have the authority to go into schools to get the kids. So, you talk about there being a raid in the school. That was not done in the school is my question for that. But we talk a lot about the adults. How are we seeing the effects in these children? At the end of the day, kids get the trauma that their parents don't take care of. So what is being done for that?
I just want to clarify, the 3 ICE raids or detentions that occurred in front of 3 different CMS schools occurred this week. One of them was a parent of children in the CMS school. Yesterday we had a press conference and the PTA came and spoke about it. So this was during drop-off. Kids saw. So although it was not physically inside, it was in the around where families and kids saw.
When it comes to kids, I get emotional. I don't even know if I can get to the question because I get really emotional because kids absorb every single thing that they're seeing on the news, that they're seeing happen with their families, the fear, the anxiety. Literally, they absorb every single thing, and they have very interesting, different ways of showcasing that. And that's the whole goal of our bridge, that we want to continue to be we want to continue to be a place where kids feel safe and be able to express those emotions, those feelings, those fear. So we are continuing our work of providing after school programming and summer camp. So all throughout, beginning from fall to the next fall, we are always continuously providing resources for the kids and space for them to feel safe. So we are focusing on our curriculum is social emotional well-being as the first thing. That really is like checking in, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Making sure that they have the basic needs met, because we know that kids are not ready to learn unless they feel safe. So, do you have your meat? So you got your food. We can work through your homework. We can work through recess, whatever, play, whatever that looks like. We just want to make sure that our full attention is on the child and navigating the conversations that are happening around them. Yeah.
All right, y'all, so we have a lot of questions left in 15 minutes. Ms. Nathalie, I'm going to ask you to be strict. 30 seconds per question. Please ask one panelist to answer, 1 minute for a response. All right?
Good morning. My name is Lawrence Brinson, and I asked this question as a former PDSO on a local university campus, which is just a designated person for international students. Are your organizations working, or do you know any impacts with international students on higher education?
I just want to clarify. The question is, do we know personally of the impacts of it?
And are you working?
And are we working with the students? So again, I think someone earlier asked a similar question, and the answer is, at least for our organization, when we do receive calls from the students, we don't personally support them in taking their case, but we do refer them with whatever. We have a big network of folks, and one thing we are not shy about is about sharing and connecting them directly to what they would need. So that's something that, at least that for us, where if we get calls, and when we get calls, we make sure that we connect them personally to any resources that they need.
I heard very clearly your concern about CMS and what they need to do. My question is, I think back to your question, as a community, for example, is there a possibility of having demonstrations where we say, as a community, it's not acceptable to have parents picked up at school time? In other words, how can we make it visible that we as a community see this as wrong, we stand together to do that? Can you help us with that?
Yeah, so there is going to be an upcoming board member meeting, and the thing is that we have to hold folks accountable. Board members, anyone, we have to hold them accountable. And these board member meetings really is to stand in solidarity with families and to tell CMS they need to do better. They need to do better, right? So the board meetings that are going to happen, they're going to be at the government center, and then I can share that information and afterwards, but they're going to be Tuesday, May 27th at 6 p.m. and Tuesday, June 5th at 6 p.m. And it's really just to show up and show support and advocate for the children at CMS, and to really make our voices heard and let them know that it's not okay for them to just put out a statement and say yeah, this happens and that's fine. No, there needs to be tangible actions taken, because no children should have to witness their parent being taken away after being dropped off, or other children's witness a classmate's parents being taken away. That's not acceptable.
Okay, hello. The children who have been separated from their families, what happened to them? Where are they, and what's the best way we can support them?
So it's more of a broader question of the families that have been separated in general. Right now, normally what's happening is that when a person is being detained here, it normally takes days up to weeks until we know where they are. They're abducted.
Yeah.
Weeks, right? And when they finally figure out where they're at, they're gonna be in a detention facility in a very rural part. Most of them are being taken to Stewart Detention Facility, which is in Georgia, in Lumpkin, Georgia. And it takes, again, weeks to find that family member. For the family to connect with them is a whole nother system that takes weeks, right? So when we're talking about the children, we're talking about the family that's being impacted, the family that's being left behind to face financial burdens, to face all the cruelty, to face trauma, to face everything. And with kids asking questions, where'd my dad go, right? So it's more about how are we supporting those families, right? And I would just say we have a solidarity fund that you guys could donate to that will go directly to impacted families.
Okay, just to clarify something, when I brought up the thing about deportation and stuff, I guess my question should have been, are y'all's organization working with law firms or the government officials and stuff to make sure that these people are staying here that are coming in? Because the focus seems to be on coming in, but we want to keep them here. So are y'all working with the organization to prevent them from being sent back? Thank you.
I definitely think it takes all of us, right? We are working with lawyers that have experience in navigating immigration and the criminal justice system is what we're talking about, right? In particular to Southeast Asian folks, there has to be an MOU, so a memo of understanding between the U.S. and said countries that they're being sent to, and when those countries say no, like you have instances of where folks are being sent to other countries that they have no experiences of. And when we're talking about, like, I want to be clear, when we're talking about Southeast Asian folks, these folks, 13,000 of 16,000 folks are held on immigration because of old criminal convictions, meaning they have already served their sentence, their time, and now these past convictions are haunting them. And are the reasons, so you have people that have already created lives being sent back to these countries.
Okay, Tom.
All right.
Yeah, I can see that we have a network of community partners that are focused on, this is exactly their lane, and so we try to connect as much as we can because this is not necessarily our focus, but we know other organizations. Again, collective impact is the biggest way to make a change, so we will refer out. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say the same. We try our best to connect them to the organization. They have them, most of the time we work with International House, they have little clinic programs, they have immigration. On my own part, we have a program where we support families. I have an example when the families came here like 8 years ago. There was bring from Africa, they bring them here because of language barriers. They don't have any documents, they don't have no green cards, nothing. But when they came here, there was legal. They don't come like they feel the country, they come by themselves. No, they have some organization here for the years. They go to Africa, they bring people from Africa to the years. When they come here, because of the language barrier, they just leave them like that. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. Then we connect them with the organization that have them succeed, that have them like found the paperwork, everything to be legal here.
All right, y'all, we got 3 minutes. I'm trying to get as many people as we can. 15 seconds of question, one person, 30 seconds to respond.
And there were men invited to serve on the panel. They were unable to come, like the Latin American Coalition and International House and a few others. But my question is, cuts are everywhere. You mentioned Solidarity Fund. What other ways are you getting the dollars you need?
That's hard. Honestly, we're seeing the impact of it personally, and we are definitely open for donations. And honestly, the people that have been donating and our recurring donors have been such a blessing because they make it possible for us to continue waking up and being in the community and informing folks and translating and being here. And then, we do have 2 attorneys on staff. that do take cases. And so we're getting, impacted left and right, but we're really trying to make the best with what we have, but we desperately need help right now.
Let's go.
In America, everything begins with the vote, and laws, policies, and systems fall out from results of those votes. There has been a big disconnect between many Black Americans and African Americans in cultures, even Hispanic and Latino, and both immigrant and citizens. So how do you view that disconnect and repairing that disconnect, as many of them now want to reach out to Black Americans when many of them, never related to us before?
I was gonna say, how do you know that? What do you mean by never? Well, I guess I can go back, so I won't answer that question. Because it feels like there's an opinion in there. I'm not sure if I can answer to that.
All right.
Okay, next question.
So to wrap all this up, so much I want to say with reference to what he said, but see, take away from my 15 seconds. Real talk. So outside of a simple Google search on immigration, on laws, on all of that, do you have a specific website or resources where we all can educate ourselves to be a little bit more informed, to have a little bit more sensitivity as it relates to this topic?
If you have websites, just provide them on record. Say your website. All right, what's your website, everybody?
CarolinaMigrantNetwork.org.
Awesome.
BridgeForKids.org.
AmaniKid.social.
SEACvillage.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our wonderful panel. We have to quickly go into announcements, and we're going to start with our councilman.
Thomas.
House musician privilege. All right, good.
I was just sitting here listening to y'all talk, and all of a sudden tears just start flowing in my eyes. I want to say this. We need to all remember who the children are in our communities. What people tend to do is they harm children. They don't think about what is happening. But you think about the fact that there are leaders in our community who see nothing wrong with what we are doing around the schools, and the children are watching. When you harm the heart of the child, that's there for generations. When you cut deep, when you talk about parents, and you're gonna take somebody's parent and take that parent out of that child's life. I just wanted to say to you, you are my heroes, my sheroes. And I thank you for the hard work you're doing. I'm sorry I can't be with you because I'm old now. But I'm so moved by you. God sent God's son as an infant to teach the world. This infant, you need to take care of this infant. And I see you as people who are fighting the battle. God bless you all.
Thank you.
And that is privilege. Nobody else can do that. So we're going to go straight to announcement. We have Councilman Malcolm Graham.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning. I'm honored to have the opportunity to be the speaker on June 3rd, talking about my new book, The Way Forward. So I look forward to coming and discussing the book as a reference to the Emmanuel AME church shooting where my sister was a victim. You can get a copy of the book at the Park Road bookstore, so you can read it before June 3rd, or you can order it online at Amazon and on Barnes & Noble. So you can read it before the June 3rd. We have a really meaningful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other announcements, Jackie? Also, June 4th is my birthday.
Happy birthday. I'd like to announce that on Thursday, June 5th, Greater Charlotte Apartment Association is having a hiring fair. at South Boulevard Library from 1 to 6. You've seen all of these apartments. They are looking for folk to be there. 1 to 6 South Boulevard Library on Thursday, June 5th. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Robert Collins. I have a radio show that you can tune into Thursday. It seems to be the thing around here. Thursday is at 8 a.m. Miss Io, who's not here today, is going to be on the show. She's one of our regulars. We're talking about mental health. And so with all the things that we're talking about, everything has to go back to trauma, unfortunately, and how to, get yourself through it. So Thursday, 8 a.m., WDRB Media, or visit my website, theuntrappedmind.com. Again, that's theuntrappedmind.com.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Basener. I'm with the League of Women Voters, and I just wanted to announce that right before that CMS board meeting on May 27th, we're going to have a press conference along with, at this point, 14 other community organizations to call out the General Assembly on the tyranny of withholding funding for our public schools. It's called the New Mecklenburg, Happy MECDEC Day, and this is, we're tying to the MECDEC by, this is the new Mecklenburg community resolves, and we're gonna read all of our demands. And please come join us. Bring a friend, bring a sign, and put it out to your communities. It's gonna start at 5 p.m. at the Government Center Plaza. Come early with a sign and be loud. Thank you. It's on May 27th at 5 p.m., but come early.
Hello everyone. I'm Alexis King. I work for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Association of Educators. This Thursday is the final budget hearing for the county commissioners' budget cycle. So those of us who are trying to campaign for a higher supplement for educators are coming together on this day. It's also going to be at the Government Center at 6 p.m. And we will also be presenting our petition. So if anyone has not signed our petition yet, come hither. I also have QR codes if anyone wants to pass those out to people. Thank you.
Any other announcements? That seems to be all. So thank you everybody for joining another very informative rendition of 21. Dr. Thomas, play us out. Thank you so much.
Lights.